It's unclear to me whether or not you think this EO really moves the needle.
I don't think it moves the needle that much from where we were before. I think it's more just a reflection of where the administration is than, anything else, which is to say there isn't a lot of sort of conclusiveness about where exactly things will end up. But I think there's increasing pressure to get regulatory clarity, to get departments working together on a number of different issues.
So you think they felt pressured to say something, anything, and they're going to fill in the cracks later on?
I think that's a piece of it. And I think a lot of this is balancing various different viewpoints that they're hearing and different things. And I think, when you talk about like illicit finance, they're sort of simultaneously hearing it's really important that there's regulatory oversight to prevent, sanctions, non-compliance, and also hearing from sort of relevant, people that there isn't a lot of sanctions evasions going through digital assets. And I think both of those are true. And I think that sort of led to a somewhat balanced and nuanced EO.
Yeah. Well, certainly with regard to the Russian-Ukrainian situation, the fact that there have been some positive externalities, and we're going to talk about your philanthropic efforts in a minute, with minimal, at least for now, concerns that this is turning into some kind of malevolent force, crypto finance. I mean, that seems to be a pretty nice setup, wouldn't you say?
I think that's absolutely right. And I think it's obviously incumbent on the industry and on regulators to work together to keep that being the case. But I think that's absolutely key that, it's able to help fund humanitarian efforts here while also not being a pathway for evading sanctions. And I think that is what we've seen.
You're the official partner of Aid for Ukraine. I wonder if you can give us the latest. I mean, I've looked at some fundraising numbers, but I imagine they've got to be larger by now.
I don't know all the sources, obviously, that are coming in. There's a few different pathways. I'm guessing we're probably above 100 million in crypto so far. More coming in by the day. It's been really exciting to see that happening. And I think, some of that is coming from the crypto community itself. There's been a real outpouring of support. And some of it's just come from people looking for some way to be able to help support it.
You're making a push into Europe, FTX Europe. And I wonder what the strategy is there. Obviously, it does make some sense on one level, but there's another school of thought that discretionary income, for example, in the UK, is going to be facing some generational headwinds. What's your idea?
In the end, there's only so much we can do to sort of control, macroeconomic environment, and we'll have to see what happens. Right? This is certainly not what we anticipated. We'd be talking about this time of year, 6 months ago. But one way or another, whatever happens there, I think it's really important that we do get licensed and regulated everywhere that we can. And our big European rollout with cross-continent licensing is a big piece of that.
We talked in our prior segment about the price action, specifically today, in the wake of this executive order. And I wonder if you think it's related to just this idea that got baked in that somehow any kind of regulatory framework was going to be worst case. There's going to be name calling. It was going to be echoing what we've heard from at least some regulators at the SEC. And then there was a relief when that apparently didn't happen. How would you characterize sentiment now versus 24 hours ago?
It's fairly accurate. I think there are a lot of people. I mean, you saw when the announcement came that it was going to come out this week, there's a lot of worry in the crypto community that this was going to be a really unreasonable and sort of heavy-handed executive order trying to effectively ban digital assets. And that's not at all what it was. It was a completely reasonable approach to it that sort of laid out important considerations and, tasked people with coming up with constructive solutions for it. Now, I think that was sort of always what it was going to be. I don't think that this was sort of trending towards a particularly ideological executive order at any point in time. But I'm guessing that a lot of people in the community sort of thought that maybe it would be. And I do think they're really relieved to see something that felt completely reasonable.
So what are you looking for to happen next? Are you looking for more clarity within the elements of this executive order? Do you think it's going to be more about international regulators sort of matching service or something else?
I think it's going to be, if I had to guess, I would guess that the U.S. is going to play a big role in this over the next year. I think there's sort of three core areas that we're looking at, and I think the executive order touched on these. I also think that separately agencies are working on them. One of them is stablecoin oversight, coming up with an auditing framework for them. A second is markets regulation, especially when it comes to spot commodity transactions, who is the primary markets regulator for digital assets. And the third is token registration. What is the analog of a typical equity securities registration? for a wide variety of digital assets. Those are kind of the three biggest things that we have our eyes on in the United States over the next year.